Hello, everybody. I am here to talk to you a little bit about some specific things around learning. So let's get rolling on that. I'm going to be starting at slide 28 of the presentation, mainly because I think that it is important that you understand specific things around learning theory that that are very easily misunderstood and that most people do not get right. And this is important to me, and it will really serve you well to understand these concepts in your life as you go forward. So it's all important. You're going to need it all for your exam. It's all useful. I have found in my life that what we're about to cover is the most useful. All right, so let's do this. Okay, so we are going to talk about reinforcement and punishment. Now, I want you to take out from your brain the belief that you have around the words positive and negative, because what you are thinking is what we use in everyday life: positive, good, negative, bad. No, that's not what that means when we're talking about learning. When we're talking about learning, when we say positive, we mean we're adding something. When we say negative, we mean we're taking away something. So we're talking about math definitions here, not everyday life. Okay. So, all right. So with that understanding, reinforcement, the word reinforcement means you are trying to increase the chance that the behavior will occur again. That's what it means. So when you are having a positive reinforcement, what that means is you have added something in positive in order to increase a behavior, reinforcement. Negative reinforcement means you are still trying to increase the behavior, but you've removed something in order to get that done. It's harder to come up with examples of negative reinforcement, but they're absolutely there. Okay, so we can talk about that a little bit, but remember, that's what we're talking about here: positive, adding something in; negative, taking something away. Okay, so when we're talking about reinforcement and also when we're talking about punishment, it's important to understand that immediate reinforcers are much more effective than delayed reinforcers. This is true for punishment as well. The swifter the consequence to a behavior, whether it's a good consequence and you want to increase that behavior, or a negative consequence because you want to decrease the behavior, it doesn't matter. The more immediate it is, the more salient it is, the more powerful it is, the more likely it is to have an impact. So this is why, when a dog, pees on the carpet and you come home and 5 hours later and then you rub its nose, and you should not do that. Okay, because they don't understand the connection between the behavior and the result. Way too long. Okay, so like when you're talking about a human being, you might be able to explain, when we're talking about children, you might be able to explain something with that big of a delay and have the result make a difference. But you'd be surprised how little that matters a lot of the time. It really has to be swift. So when we're talking about a behavior like, for example, peeing on the floor, okay, you need to respond to that within 3 seconds for it to be effective. 3. Okay, so when you're training an animal, that's why, we're talking about clicker training or something, which I'm probably going to try and find you a video about why clicker training works. But that's why clicker training works, is because it is immediate feedback. Okay, so all All right, what else? Let's see here. Okay, so I already talked about this, reinforcement versus punishment. Okay. You can get really, really, really wrapped up in the language of this stuff. Don't get wrapped up in the language. Just understand what it means. Okay. Reinforcement, you're trying to increase the chance that a behavior is going to occur. Punishment, you're trying to decrease the chance that the behavior is going to occur. Okay. All right. So again, it's hard to come up with examples of this, but like you're right. This is gonna be part of your assignment, most likely. I haven't written your assignment yet, but very likely you're gonna have to do this. And the internet is riddled with examples of this. But you need to think about, for you, examples for you of what counts as, well, what you would describe now in these terms as positive punishment, positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. Okay. So this is super important. Let's talk about the schedule of reinforcement. It's really, really interesting stuff and will help you a lot, especially if you have children or pets. Okay, continuous reinforcement of every correct response. That's exactly what it sounds like. It sounds like, if you give the dog a treat every single time the dog sits down, that's continuous reinforcement. But if you give the dog a treat, kind of at random every time the dog sits down, okay, that's partial reinforcement. So partial reinforcement schedules, this is important, okay? Partial reinforcement schedules are much, much, much more powerful, okay, than continuous reinforcement. If you are on a continuous reinforcement schedule and then you stop reinforcing the behavior, you just stop, period, gone, very quickly it will go away. You can bring it back, but very quickly it will go away. With partial reinforcement schedules, now, first of all, in order to create a behavior that is reliable, you need to start with a continuous reinforcement schedule. You need to start that way. But once it's established, if you really want it to last, you want to go to partial reinforcement, okay? Because like the organism is primed to respond more to partial reinforcement and to kind of like try the behavior more. This, by the way, is exactly why gambling is addictive. Okay, because if you think about a slot machine, or really any kind of gambling, but slot machine is a good example, you will understand that that is a very partial reinforcement schedule. You pull the lever however many times, you press the button however many times. Sometimes you get reinforced with a reward, sometimes you don't. Okay, partial reinforcement schedules are very, very powerful. I just want to point out I'm a social worker, okay? So like, I just want to point out that partial reinforcement schedules also show up in relationships, okay? When we are talking about interpersonal relationships, partial reinforcement is also called intermittent reinforcement, same thing. The terms are interchanged. When you're talking about interpersonal relationships with, a romantic partner or with a parent or whatever, and you are being partially reinforced by that person. So like, some days they're lovely and nice and kind and wonderful, and other days they're just, horrible, and it's a painful interaction and the whole thing is just terrible. You are going to have a much, much, much harder time extracting yourself from that relationship, leaving that relationship, than you would if it was great, and then suddenly it was garbage. Okay, because of this concept. All right, so it applies to lots and lots of things. It is a mistake to believe that it only applies to animals or children or whatever. It does not. It applies to everything. Okay, it's a very, very important concept. All right. All right, interval schedules. So again, we just sort of talked about this. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but like, I just want to reiterate that, like, you know, there are also interval schedules, right? So like the fixed interval schedule, the variable interval schedule. Again, the response rate, okay, is going to be strengthened, right? The response, the behaviors are going to be strengthened, okay, by an interval schedule, right? But it's going to be even more strengthened. It's going to be most strengthened if you use a variable rate schedule. So in other words, what does that mean? At random, okay? You're going to get the most response when you're doing your training. All right, if you're using a variable ratio schedule, okay? All right, so that is really what I wanted to cover about learning. Almost everybody gets reinforcement and punishment wrong, right? Now that you understand what this means, it's going to bother you every time you go onto Instagram or Facebook and somebody uses the word reinforcement when what they really mean is punishment. They're going to say, you know, negative reinforcement when what they really mean is punishment. It's going to bug you, and then you get to go and explain to them what reinforcement and punishment actually mean. Okay, go out into the world and explain.